Adem Asil was golden in the all-around. Luke Whitehouse made history, winning 3 floor titles in a row. Someone mooned the camera in the arena. Yes, you heard that right. And Andy Toba finished the final routine of his international career in front of a home crowd with a silver medal on high bar. For those new here, I'm Kensley, the host of Neutral Deductions, a podcast all about men's gymnastics. This is episode 74, where I recap the 2025 European Championships and the 2025 Canadian Championships. So we got back from Germany about a week ago. I would not say that it had been our smoothest week of travel that I've ever had. Both flights were delayed on both ends due to bad weather. On the way there, we ended up sitting on the tarmac for about 3 hours and we almost missed our connecting flight to Berlin. And then on the way back, they oversold our flight by 17 seats. So that was kind of a bit of a mess trying to get to and from Germany. And if you are sitting here wondering, why is this episode coming out so late? European Championships ended over a week ago. I promise there's a very good reason. And it's because, surprise, I am pregnant and we are super, super excited. This baby is due towards the end of the year and the podcast listeners are the ones who get to find out first. So surprise. So a new gym baby is coming and it seems to be that season. Jordan Weber and Patricia from Gymnastics Now just had their babies. Alice Kinsella, Danusha Francis, Ellie Seitz, and Jaje Barbosa are also due to have babies later this year. So it just seems kind of like a baby party. How does this fit into podcasting and why this is so late? So let me tell you. I have to be completely honest, that trip totally kicked my butt. You always hear that once you reach the second trimester, you have all of this energy, and I was cleared by my doctor to go, but oh my Lord, I have never been so tired in my entire life. So following men's all-around final, I actually started to have really, really severe pain and swelling in my legs, and we actually ended up going to the hospital and getting some treatment for it. So that's why I didn't podcast after men's all-around finals. So thank you for your patience as I sort of navigated being pregnant in a foreign country and all the complications that come with that. And also, if you've been wondering why maybe I sound out of breath in half of the episodes over the past couple months, it's because I'm growing a human and that is a lot of work. So on to the gymnastics side of things. I do hope you enjoyed the videos from the European Championships. I have to say the staff and the volunteers at the European Championships were so helpful in getting the requested athletes, and that's not always the case at major championships. I will say that most of the athletes do want to pretty quickly get to recovery, which makes a lot of sense. So we are super appreciative to those who took the time to speak with us. I did do a podcast post-qualifications team finals and mixed team finals. So today I'm going to be focusing on what happened in the European all-around final and the event finals. So if you're wanting to know what happened in qualifications/team finals or the mixed team championships, go ahead and listen to those podcast episodes, which are available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and of course, YouTube. There is one main thing that I didn't cover from qualifications that I definitely think is worth mentioning, and that's what happened with Ferhat Arican of Turkey on pommel horse. So when he went up in qualifications, he was just a few skills into his routine, and he went up for his Busnari, which is a traveling handstand, and he fell on the element. And apparently the judges thought he was done, but he very clearly wasn't. He had only done 3 non-A elements, and he hadn't even done an element from element group 3. So, right, normally this is not a big deal. Falls happen. You have 30 seconds to remount and continue. But if you look, the judges are not looking at Arican. They are in fact looking down and trying to code his routine. But he clearly was not done. It was a very short routine and he didn't salute the judges when he came off. So he's if you look at this video, he's waving at them, trying to get their attention. And he was up there for a really, really long time. And so I kind of think they didn't start a fall timer for him. Because remember, you only have 30 seconds to remount after this happens. So eventually he's able to get the attention of the judges. And he's able to get back up and complete his routine. But this actually could have been pretty bad because there's a new rule in this Olympic cycle that if a gymnast is repeating a dismount, that the judge can't recognize any additional elements performed prior to the repeated dismount. So if they had counted officially the Busnari fall as a dismount, like his routine would have been over. He would have gotten deductions for short routine. It could have been a whole mess. I think because it was so early in the routine, it would have been very clear that to any superior jury that he needed to remount to finish his routine. But if the Busnari had been placed maybe later in the routine and that fall had occurred, it could have been more of an issue. So I definitely think that this is something that the MTC is going to have to evaluate and to clarify to make sure that an athlete isn't punished further for a fall than necessary. So moving on to all-around finals. Coming in after qualifications, Noe Seifert of Switzerland was in first, Christopher Mejeros of Hungary was in second, and Luke Whitehouse of Great Britain was in third. Now, a lot of people had predicted that the 2024 all-around champ Marius Georgiou was going to be in that mix, but he actually didn't end up competing all-around in qualifications due to unspecified reasoning. So those were the three leaders coming in. Now, starting off in rotation 1, Adem Asil of Turkey kicked things off on floor. He actually had a pretty strong routine for him, 13.466. It was better than his qualification routine and really set him up well for the rest of the all-around final. Yuman Abedini, who was up kind of in that second group on pommel horse, he started with a fall, so that kind of took him out of the running. Then Luke Whitehouse went on floor, and he did a triple back with a small hop. He did end up having a big step out of his combination pass, but I have to say his leaps are what dreams are made of. He ended up getting a 14.33 for that routine. And I found out later that Danusha Francis has been working with the British men on the leaps and corner transitions and scales for the British team. And it is showing. The US team, who is kind of considered the direct competition for the British, they need to take note because the British look so much better than them on these scales. I mean, there's a couple exceptions, but for the most part, they're blowing them out of the water. So in the first rotation too, vault basically assaulted everyone. I mean, it was fall after fall after fall after fall. It was really, really messy. And that was until Sebastian Spanovic broke the curse with a gorgeous drag Gillespie that scored 14.4. Now, Christopher Mejeros is a gymnast that we have been watching for a very long time. Gorgeous Hungarian lines. And he had a really, really pretty opening set and a back 2.5 to double front, really gorgeous form. And that again was going to set him up well for the competition. Now, Noe Seifert, who was coming in as the leader in the all around, he honestly kind of scared me with his opening pass. It was really, really low. I have to say he does this really nice arm circle before his scale. It's very artistic and definitely draws the eye to the athlete, but his 13.133 was not exactly where he wanted to be heading into the next rotation. So following rotation 1, Sebastian Spanovic of Norway with a 14.4 in the lead. I think this was, quite a shock. You don't hear his name very often, even though he's a fantastic gymnast. Luke Whitehouse is in second with a 14.333, and then Niels Dunkel of Germany is with a 14.1, and he had just completed his routine on pommel horse. So moving on to rotation 2, Luke Whitehouse basically took himself out on pommel horse. He fell on the dismount. Christopher Mejeros went cleanly through. And then we found out in this rotation that Nestor Abad of Spain withdrew, and he later posted on Instagram that his body couldn't take the 3 days of competition in a row, meaning the qualification day, then the mixed team final, and then this all-around final. And he ended up needing to preserve his body. And this is sort of a theme that you'll see as I continue to talk about the all-around final. Several of the athletes said, this is not healthy for our body. This is not a good way to compete. And I think one of the things that's a little bit hard for me to dissect as someone who obviously did not do men's gymnastics at this level is this a lack of conditioning, or is this really unhealthy for the gymnast body? And I don't have a good grasp of maybe what the truth is here in the situation. So I would love to hear from some of the athletes who competed in these final and what their opinion was. What did it feel like, a lack of conditioning, or does it feel like it's too much too quickly for the health of the athletes? all that being said, following rotation 2, Niels Dunkel of Germany is in the lead with a 27.6, Sebastian Spanevik of Norway in second with a 27.566, and Leo Saladino of France in third with a 27.532. So again, we're coming out of the second rotation. This is not exactly who you think is going to be in the lead. So in the third rotation, Sebastian Spanevik ended up falling on high bar, and honestly, he would have needed a perfect day and needed help from other people to pull off something spectacular, but he is definitely an athlete that I now have on my watch list. Now, he did end up falling pretty hard, and he did withdraw from the competition. So the third rotation otherwise was not particularly interesting, except for the fact that when they were going around doing the flex cam, a man decided to moon the flex cam. So yes, in the entire arena, there is a man's naked rear end in front of the competition. So it felt more like, a regular sporting event where people go streaking through than, the normal gymnastics event that we're used to. So moving on to rotation 4. So this is where the top group is on vault, and you sort of start to see things maybe like come to life. So following rotation 4, you have Adem Asil in the lead of Turkey with a 55.365. Then Leo Saladino in second with a 54.698, and Niels Dunkel of Germany in third with a 54.599. So the German crowd is definitely a crowd that I would say is a well-informed crowd. Like, they know what's going on. So they're following the rotations, and they're seeing that their athlete potentially has this chance to win an all-around medal. And the roar for Niels was unbelievable. And that was something, it's always special to watch an athlete who is competing in front of a home crowd do well, because even those who maybe aren't as well informed, like, they want to see their colors up there. And so I thoroughly enjoyed getting to watch Niels perform quite well in front of this crowd. So we're going to kind of skip the fifth rotation. There wasn't a ton that's happening here to take out any of the top leaders, and moving on to the sixth rotation. So the top group is now on high bar. So Adem Asil, I wouldn't say he's like the strongest high bar worker ever. He did end up making high bar finals at the European Championships, but he's probably not going to make a high bar final at a World Championships, right? But he does a very good routine for him, sticks the landing, and screams like at the top of his lungs. He is so, so, so happy. And you see his score pop up with an 83.398. And at this point, like, doing the math, you're like, okay, no one's probably going to be able to touch him for that all-around final. So Leo Saladino has now gone on to pommel horse, didn't fall, so he's still in the mix. And then you have Christopher Majoros. I spoke about him earlier, the Hungarian gymnast who has all of this potential, but he has the biggest case of flopitis that I have ever seen. And he finally was able to put it all together at the end. And then he was able to bump Anthony Monsard from France from third down to fourth. So the final gymnast is getting ready to go. It's Noé Seifert of Switzerland, who, remember, qualified in first. He just had to put this routine to his feet. He did a fairly good routine, but he put his hands down on the dismount, and that was the end of his all-around quest. He is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated gymnasts in Europe, and his leadership is really what helped the Swiss to that silver medal in the team. But he just wasn't able to use the last bit of energy on the dismount. And he's another one of those athletes that talked about competing in qualifications and then mixed team final and then all-around final, and how much that wore on his body. So in the end, Adem Asil won with an 83.398. Leo Saladino took silver, and Christopher Majoros took bronze. Moving on to event finals. So event finals are structured pretty normally as you would see in any major championship. So on the first day you have floor, pommel horse, and still rings, and on the second day you have vault, parallel bars, and high bar. So going into floor finals, the big story of the day was Luke Whitehouse going to become the back-to-back European champion on floor? So Luke was up second after Nazar Chupirny, and his first pass, a triple back, was actually really quite low. And I thought in the moment, oh my gosh, like, he might have actually given it away just on that one tumble. But the rest of his routine was actually quite good, including a stuck dismount, and he ended up getting a 14.5 for that routine. And a 14.5 was pretty much at that point going to guarantee him a place on the podium. And I thought maybe only Adem Asil of Israel was the only person who could realistically beat that score. Now, Adem ended up flopping quite badly and was immediately clear he was going to be off the podium. Then we have Lorenzo Casali of Italy, who actually led floor qualifications, but his routine was not as clean as in qualifications and ended up with a 13.966 that put him in second place. And that was the final routine before they had that timed warm up for the second group. Following the warm-up, Harry Hepworth, Luke's British teammate, put up a stunner of a routine, including opening with an airplane scale, followed by a near-stuck triple-double. Honest to God, I know I've mentioned it so many times, but the German crowd loved the scale. And Harry's routine, honestly, was impeccable. It was just the dismount. And I think his kind of like low landing and big steps gave Luke the title. I actually think had Harry been able to control that dismount, that title actually would have been his over looks. But again, I just want to mention the British team have put the work into the corner transitions and artistry, and it definitely shows compared to a lot of the other athletes. Now, the final three gymnasts were Kevin Penev, Matteo Giubilini, and Luca Muvarito. So Kevin Penev for Bulgaria, and then the other two gymnasts for Switzerland. So they all fell, and interestingly, they all fell on connection passes that included double fronts or double pikes. And that's actually what Adem fell on too, now that I'm thinking about it. And it's quite telling to me that these athletes are seeking to get this bonus connection and that they are struggling a lot on these passes. And it's got me wondering, are these passes actually worth it for most gymnasts? So yes, you can potentially get 1/10 or 2/10 bonus, but if you're going for that double front tuck, you're going to get hit for cowboying, and the double pikes can get downgraded to the double tucks. And so I just keep thinking, man, I wonder if throughout the Olympic cycle, we're going to see more and more gymnasts actually take these connections out because they're going to figure out maybe they're not worth it for the bonus because maybe it's not best for my body. So in the end, the podium was Luke Whitehouse winning his third back-to-back floor exercise title with a 14.5, his teammate Harry Hepworth in silver for a 14.366, and Lorenzo Casali of Italy with a 13.966. Moving on to pommel horse, the talk of the town coming into pommel horse finals was these two youngsters, Gabriele Targhetta of Italy, who at that point held the highest score in the world, and Hamlet Manoukian of Armenia, who has just been a machine, winning gold medal after gold medal after gold medal on the World Cup circuit. So both of them delivered as expected. Targhetta opened the final with a good routine, some small form things here or there, but he was honestly solid, and he got a 14.4 that held all the way through till the second group warmed up. After the break, both Armenian youngsters went back-to-back. The first was Mehmet Khachitriyan, who was up to that point had not won a senior medal at a World Cup. And you just have to watch his routine. Seriously, like go check it out on YouTube. His Busnari is like, I don't know, like butter. Like rarely do you ever see one perform so smoothly. And really my only critique of his routine is, I would say the big one are the one pommel elements. He's extremely stiff in his sewn skills, but his handstand and dismount are superb. And his 14.733 ended up putting him into first place. Then came his teammate, Hamlet Manoukian, who I have not been able to shut up about. For anyone who will listen, this kid is the real deal. He is only 17, and he's beating all of these older seniors over and over and over. And there's no other way to say it, but it just looks like he is one with the pommel horse. And his 14.766 was enough for the lead. So the results were Hamlet Manoukian of Armenia 14.766, Mehmet Khachitriyan with a 14.733, and then Gabriele Targhetta a 14.4. So the average age of this pommel horse podium was 18. So Hamlet 17, I think Mehmet's 18, and Gabrielle's 19. Like this is such a young podium. Definitely not the veterans we may have been used to seeing. Moving on to still rings, Eleftherios Petronius came into this final as the leader and was the only one to have broken the 9.0 E-score in qualifications. But the final ended up starting off with Artur Avetisyan, who qualified in 5th and performed a near flawless routine and a near stuck double dismount with an 8.966 E-score, which would actually end up being the highest of that final. And his final score was a 14.366. I think the hardest things with ring finals is it almost always comes down to handstand positions and dismounts, because these athletes are always basically near perfect in every other position that they hold. And so Petronius was up third, and for him, his handstands and Maltese positions were really, really good, but he didn't stick the landing, and his E-score took a hit for it. He was about 0.3 down less in quals, but he ended up scoring a 14.4, which at that point took the lead away from Artur Avetisian. So we get to the end of finals day 1, and no one has been able to crack Avetisian and Petronius' scores. Then Adem Asil goes up second to last, and he took several steps back on his dismount. I honestly thought that might cook him and take him off the podium, but he ended up tying for first. And honestly, I don't know if I've ever seen a happier podium in my entire life. I mean, you can tell that both Petronius and Asil really respect each other, but also just their pure joy. And I've got pictures of this final on my Instagram page on Neutral Deductions. I had an amazing, amazing photographer there on site, and just the absolute joy, and then choosing to piggyback the mascot. These are the moments that make gymnastics just so exciting and beautiful. So then day 2 of event finals comes around, and we started the day off on vault. Vault was not dramatic. It can be dramatic, but it wasn't for this day. As long as people hit, the gold was going to come down to Jake Jarman of Great Britain and Artur Dovtan of Armenia. Jake has the D-score advantage, but Artur is a stick machine. And then bronze was in all probability going to come down to Nazar Chipirny of Ukraine and Harry Hepworth of Great Britain. So Artur ended up sticking both of his vaults, and that's what made the difference. Jake made kind of a silly landing error on his Dragulescu, which kind of took the gold away from him. Although I will say his stick on his Yanakura was incredible. Very reminiscent of 2023 World Championships, his mouth dropping open and kind of the disbelief in his eyes. And I do think it's worth watching. I think he has them both pinned on his Instagram profile. So if you don't want to sit and watch the whole competition, or if you weren't watching it live, definitely take a look at those reactions to those vault. They're worth watching. So when coming down to the bronze, I think that there's just a couple of places where Nazar Chipirny performed better than Harry. Their form in the air is actually kind of similar, but Nazar has really worked on getting rid of or lessening his pre-flight deductions, whereas they're still a little bit present for Harry. And then when looking at Harry's vaults, they're a little bit less controlled for this competition. But honestly, all 4 of these gymnasts are most likely to make the vault final at Worlds later this year. And then you never know what's going to happen, because also I believe Harry is going to be upgrading his vault to a handspring triple front as well. Coming into the parallel bar final, this was a pretty weak field comparatively, honestly. It's the only final where no one cracked 14. And if you look at the top 25 scorers in the world, they're all 14.5 or higher. And then when you look at the winning score, which was a 13.9, it ranks 192nd in the world right now. And you have to compare that to where the other athletes play. So the floor exercise winning score is 10th in the world. The pommel horse winning score was 9th. Still ring was 32nd, and vault was 5th. So if that kind of gives you any comparison of how weak this field was overall, this is nothing against the athletes themselves. It's just, I really want to provide perspective as to how competitive the other athletes in Europe on other events are. But I just don't think we're going to see a lot of the European athletes make a big dent into the world scene later this year. So the title really should have been a shoo-in for Ferhat Arijan if he went clean, but he didn't. He fell. And so the title pretty shockingly ended up going to Niels Dunkel of Germany. And when I previewed the European Championships with Sam Oldham, I ended up talking about Niels and how he's typically known for being a pommel guy, but pommels has not been his friend this season, and parallel bars has. And I thought he might have a shot at the podium, but I never expected him to win. And I think that you can see it in his face as well. It was a shock to him, but honestly, these moments are the beautiful ones in sports, when someone is able to capitalize on opportunities, and he got to become European champion in front of his home crowd. So the results were Niels Dunkel with a 13.9 in gold medal position, Ian Robel of Switzerland with a 13.766 in silver, and Timo Ader with a 13.7 of Germany in bronze. The final event that we're going to cover is, of course, the high baller final. So Robert Tvoregal of Lithuania qualified in first, and he was up first in finals. So he came swinging literally quite out of the box with a 14.3, which was an improvement on his qualification score, and that score wasn't going to be matched all day. Noe Seifert went up next, who also qualified in a medal position but ended up falling off. And I mentioned earlier he talked about these championships were so exhausting, going multiple days in a row of competition, and I just think the wear and tear of competition got to him. I think probably my favorite moment of the entire competition was Andy Toba's reaction following his high bar routine. He had announced prior to competition that this would be his final time competing for Germany internationally. And he has such a long and storied career for the German team, competing at 4 Olympics, including 2016, where you may remember he tore his ACL during team qualifying, and then he bravely got up and competed on pommel horse so his team could end up making it into team finals. So here in Leipzig, before his home crowd, he put together a beautiful routine with a tack half to Coleman and ended with a double lay, stuck cold, immediately burst into tears, and it was a routine that would earn him silver that day. The final routine of competition was completed by the young French superstar Anthony Mansard, who would bump Marius Gorgio from 3rd to 4th. And overall, it was a stunning competition. It was well organized, and I'm very pleased to have been able to bring you coverage of that competition. Now, happening simultaneously was the Canadian Championships. So while the competition was taking place, so were the Canadian Championships. Felix Dulce won the all-around title, which he also won last year. He won just over a point over William Aymard, and then Yanni Chronopoulos rounded out the all-around podium. Following the competition, Canada named its Pan American team, consisting of Felix Dulce, Yanni Chronopoulos, René Cournoyer, Evgeny Semeniuk, and Aiden Lee. So actually 60% of the team is from NCAA teams, which is very cool. Now, this coming week is going to be the Pan American Championships, which we will also be following and covering. This past week was the Asian Championships, which we're going to put together with a podcast about the Pan American Championships. There's been so much gymnastics, and I like getting up in the middle of the night to watch gymnastics is just not feasible for me right now. So I'm going to have to go back and watch the Asian Championships, and then I'll tell you everything that happened in them. And then of course we'll keep up with the Pan American Championships as well. And then I think we get a little bit of a break. So thank you again so much for listening. All of the interviews from European Championships are up on YouTube. Please, please, please subscribe there. It helps out the podcast so much. And it's an easy way for you to help contribute financially to Neutral Deductions so that we can bring you this coverage live. If you would like to also financially support our future trips and the trip that we just had to Germany, please consider donating. These donations really, really help us out. As I mentioned not too long ago, one of our most recent donations helped us buy a new set of travel microphones, which were great because I actually forgot the big microphone on the trip to Germany, but I had backup microphones that I could record podcasts with. So super helpful. The PayPal link is in every show note and at the bottom of every article at neutraldeductions.com, and you can donate via PayPal or Stripe. If you have any questions, comments, or insider tips, you can email us at neutraldeductions@gmail.com or message us on Instagram at Neutral Deductions. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.